So it turns out only 27% of you guys are subscribed to the channel. I'm trying to hit 100k before the year, so if you guys subscribe, that would be a huge help. Like the video, comment as well, and turn on notifications. Enjoy the video. Alright, so I don't think this video needs much of an introduction. We're going to be looking at the best stance for every legend in the game right now. Starting at Boldvar, ending at Magyar. Let's get into it. So for Boldvar, we keep it simple. Honestly, I think just running strength here, the minus dex, hammer, sword, you don't really need it much. I mean, that strength there is much more of a benefit than keeping the dex. Other than that, Boldvar, you can really run anything. I mean, I've even seen people use the defense stance. I don't think you really should. So we're going to go with strength stance. I think that is the best stance for Boldvar. Cassidy, an easy one. I mean, you really don't have an option with Cassidy. Even if you want to go speed, you're going to lose a defense, which I think is just not worth it in this case. So Cassidy, pretty much an automatic defense stance just because it takes away one from Dex. And again, Dex, not going to do anything. Orion is definitely the first out of many that I think I may have a differing opinion than some on. Personally, I like having 6 dex on Spear because on Spear with the 6 dex, you can get Sare into End Light True. And like 6 dex for Spear is that breaking point. So having 6 dex is really nice. I like to take Strength Stance. It takes away from Defense Stance, but I think at least in 1v1s, that's not a big deal. In 2v2s, you may just want to run base, or you could be that guy and you could run defense. I think these 3 are definitely the wave. I mean, this 3 strength on Orion I don't think is really worth it, especially since the higher you get in a stat, the less it's going to do for you. So 7 speed is very good, but I think it's unnecessary. Then Dex, I mean, this is just terrible. I don't think there is any reason on this earth that you should be running this stance ever. So for Bubblegum or Vrax, you're going to want to take Strength Stance. Again, just taking away from Dex Stance here. I think if you run Dex Stance, you may gain the Enlight, D-Light on Lance. I'm not completely sure. I've gotten it true. It's a very weird way to get it true. I don't completely remember how, and it's like very specific, so it's not really worth taking this, especially since you're losing a speed. Now, I will say, yeah, this high of dex, Blaster's Lance are going to feel like just crazy to use. You're going to be able to just like throw out attack after attack, but overall, I think the benefit is going to be there to take strength. And I will say defense stance is available. It is a valid option to use, but you're going to struggle killing. That's just a given, especially ever since Vraxig's got nerfed. So the Shovel Knight or Nash, some of you might think, oh, for this guy, I mean, he's got 2 wagon weapons. Just do the minus dex. Personally, for me, I never really have played Nash because of this. I don't really like the options he has for the stats. Or the stats for Spear, again, I don't really like low dex Spear that much, which is why personally, even though I've been playing Kaia, I struggle with Kaia because of the lower dex on Spear. And I gotta say, I think if you're going to run Nash, you're running him for the SIGs. And for that reason, honestly, I would just go all in. I would play the 2 dex, get that extra defense, get the 6 defense, 7 strength, 7 speed. It's ridiculous if you're able to use the kit overall right. It's going to feel maybe a little slow, especially if you're used to higher dex on these weapons. But I think at the end of the day, it's definitely worth taking. So Asuka or Nai, not going to spend too much time on this. I mean, you have to go speed. Other than that, she's going to be the slowest character in the game. Like, this is practically unplayable in current meta. The more speed usually means the better. And for a character like Nai, with Katars especially, you're going to want the speed. So just take it. Now with Hittori, Hittori's always been a legend I've played a lot of. She is my highest level legend at this point. And I got to say, I've run defense stance like 99% of the time. I don't really notice the drop in speed too much. It's still 7 speed, which is a lot. And adding that defense is a lot. The benefits outweighs the cons. In this case, excuse me, the cons are losing a speed and the benefit is gaining a defense. And that middle of the pack stat group, like going from 4 to 5 is much more impactful than going from 8 to 7 in this case. You could run base, I think that's fine, and then also speed stance is okay, but again, on Spear, you're going to be losing out on that Saren to Endlight, which for me, personally, I think that's a fantastic combo on Spear, and it's not worth getting rid of. So Roland is kind of like Nai, 3-4 speed legends. You're just going to want to default to the speed stance. You can get a little, a little creative and run the 9 defense, but at the same time, although you're not going to notice the deck's gone, you're probably not really going to feel the 9 defense as much. I'm probably wrong on that a little bit. You probably can tell in certain situations, but at the end of the day, I think being able to be at least average speed is so worth it. Now, when I play Scarlet, I'll be honest, I've been running strength stance, but I don't play Scarlet, so I wouldn't actually run this if I wanted to play her. If I was actually playing her, I'd probably run speed stance for the reasons I've mentioned previously. I think just having that average speed is really, really good. If you don't want to do this and you want to mix it up, you could do the defense stance. I think that is actually not that bad, especially in 2v2s. If you're running this in 2s, this could work really, really well. So this Blackhead, you're just going to want to run defense. Not too much to say. You could be, you know, a different kind of breed and run a glass cannon setup, 3 defense, but 8 strength, 4 dex, 7 speed. It's pretty good stats, but I mean, you're going to die in like 3 hits. You know, you get caught in a great sword string, oh, you're dead now. So I'd probably just go with the defense stance. There's no reason to go with anything else. So Ada or Heat Blast, again, another 3 defenser. They're all held back by the same thing. You just gotta run defense in this case. There's not really any better stance for Ada. It just is what it is. Sentinel's a hard one for me. Personally, when I've played Sentinel, I've either used the dex stance, because I know with Katars, you feel the dex more on them. I don't know all the specifics. I know I'm not a Katar player, but I know dex stance is good, and I hate that I can't remember the specific reasons. If you're not wanting to run dex because it does take away, you could run base stance, or you could even run defense stance. I think these 3 are probably the way to go. Now, another one you could go for is maybe even speed. The only one I personally wouldn't go for because it's Katars is strength stance. Lucian, to me, this is an easy choice because 3 strength really, really bugs me sometimes, even though he has really, really good killing ability, especially on Katars now. I would just say strength stance all day, every day. You could maybe try out the defense, but again, Katar's lower dex is kind of iffy. Other than that, I mean, base stance is probably it, but I would say strength, base stance, and defense stance are your choices. Oh, the bull. Taros. I would probably just say, I've seen a lot of people run strength stance, but I think just running base on the character is probably your best bet. If you wanted to be cool, you could do the minus dex here. I don't think you're going to notice it too much on hammer and axe, and it leaves you with a pretty nasty stat spread. 8 strength, 2 dex, and then 6 speed and 6 defense as well. I think overall that's really, really good. But yeah, I would say base or probably just speed stance. Brynn, again, I'd just say I would run dex stance on her. Now, if you're not really a big spear player, probably just go with the strength stance and just run that 4 dex. Because, again, with spear, you want that center to end light. That is a big thing for me. So I think these are the 2 stances you really should be aiming for on Brynn. You really shouldn't bother with base here because she has so many choices. She has, like, level stats like Boldvar. So you can really pick anyone you want, maybe aside from speed, unless you're playing in ones. But I would say almost for sure, probably run one of these 2. And maybe defense if you're feeling a little spicy. So for a Siri, I'm pretty sure the dex threshold, if I remember correctly now, is 6 dex for Katars. So you're going to want to just run strength stance. Other than that, there's nothing really too intriguing about the stances of a Siri. I mean, base stance could be there, but I think just running strength stance is just a flat out easy way to go. So for Barraza, at the end of the day, you just want to run speed stance, I think. I've seen people try and do the strength stance because it takes away from dex, but I think having the speed on axe and especially blasters is really beneficial. Otherwise, he can feel too slow in probably 1s. In 2s, the speed's not as big, but having that mobility with speed is really important. So for Ember, again, not going to spend too much time. Defense stance, just use it. It is the best. You shouldn't use any other stance. Azoth, run the speed stance. You want that little more speed. If not, you could run the defense stance. Now, I would only recommend this if it was 2v2, because again, you don't really have to worry about moving around as much. Some could argue you would have to worry about it more, but I feel like depending on how you play, maybe running this is worth it, because then you're left with 7 strength and defense, and then 4 speed and 4 dex. That's actually pretty crazy when it comes to a lineup for stats, but overall, I still think speed is better. Koji's a pretty big freebie. You don't need that much dex on this character at all, so just running defense stance, it's a free one. It takes away the dex, it adds a defense, easy. So I'm not the biggest Ulgrim player in the world, although I will say with his weapons, you should try out using speed stance first. I think if this feels good to you and you feel like you can do everything right, run speed stance. I mean, it's a free speed essentially. If it doesn't feel good, then I would try base stance. This is what I think the second best is. And then after that, run dex. I think these are the top 3 stances in order: speed, base, and then dex, because I know Kostelix uses dex stance on Ulgrim, and I think overall it could be beneficial for Lance and Axe. Maybe you get away with a little more, but other than that, I think if you can, run speed stance, and then this is like the middle ground, and this is like, okay, if it just feels bad and you want to play Ulgrim, use dex. So with Diana, it's not really up for debate in my mind. I think speed stance is the best. Bow and blasters benefit a lot from speed because you're going to be just flying around, trying to stay like out of harm's way, especially with blasters, like avoiding letting people inside those dead zones. So having 7 speed is really good. She's not going to lose any like legend specific combo like Delay Sig or anything like that on bow. So yeah, just it's a free speed. I would take it. Again, for defense legend, Jalfinn. You just gotta, especially given that it takes away from a dex. It's just the best. Now with core, there's not many people playing him, but I feel like there's 2 types of ways you could go about it. You could go with the minus dex, because especially on gauntlets and hammer, I don't think you're going to notice it at 4 dex too much, so you might want to run strength stance. I think that's great. Personally, because he is a 4 speed legend, I would go and run speed stance. I think speed is the best, and then strength is the second. So the frog or Shang, honestly, just running the 6 dex is the best. You don't lose anything. What's nice about it is that the threshold for spear is 6 and the threshold for gauntlets is 6 as well, 6 dex. You get Nair into Sair at 6 dex on gauntlets, and you get Sair into Enlight on spear at 6 dex. So with him, it's literally like the perfect stats for this weapon combination and legend overall. It's really incredible. I think he has one of the best stat spreads in the game because of it. So for Val's weird. Val is one of my most played characters, like Shang, and I've always run strength stance. It's just the thing is, I don't even think that's the best. I think I just have gotten so used to running strength stance. That's what I use. Val, you can kind of run a few different things. This is just terrible, never use this, but I think defense stance is actually the best one. You do notice, at least for me, I noticed the 4 dex on sword a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. I think in 2v2 especially, this stat spread, this is Kaia stats. This is just ridiculous for a sword and gauntlet legend especially. So you should try this out if you haven't. Defense stance on Val I think is really, really good. Now with Ragnar, like I said, Katars I think have a threshold at 6 dex, although I think a lot of people like to run Ragnar with defense. I'm one of those. I think Ragnar with defense is just a good choice. Although if you're worried about losing stuff on Katars, I think base stance is what you should go with. But overall, I'd probably say just run the defense stance. So Cross is intriguing. I think with Cross, you actually should just run speed stance. Other than that, if this feels uncomfortable, then just go back to base. But speed stance for Cross is really, really good. Adding that speed to these 2 weapons is nice. You're not going to lose anything. On gauntlets especially, you're not going to notice the minus dex. I mean, that's a weapon where you could have 1 dex probably, and it would feel exactly the same. So just run speed. So with Mirage, I think really running base is kind of pointless with her. Either run defense stance if you care about the spear combo. If you're not really playing too much spear and you're focusing mainly on scythe, then run that strength stance. Like I said, I like Sair to Enlight on spear. So for me, running defense stance is just the way to go. But otherwise, if you don't really care about it, run strength. So for Nyx already has like really good stats, but I would say just take the speed stance. You're not going to feel the dex, and also the high speed scythe especially is so nice, especially when you take them off stage. So I would just say take the speed stance. Don't really leave it up for debate. Mordex. Now Mordex, I've been running base stance, and personally I think base stance is the best. When I run strength stance though, I notice it too much on scythe to really use it. So if you're playing gauntlets a lot, maybe you can use strength stance, but overall, I mean, he has a lot of stances you could use. You could use defense, you could use strength, but I think base stance is just the best thing to use for him. You don't have to overthink it. It's solid stats already, so just keep it that way. Don't like try and get fancy. Yumiko, there's no debate, right? I mean, just take the strength stance. She has all right stats. You're not going to notice it. It's still above average dex anyways, so just get that strength boost and just take the strength. Artemis, now I personally like to use the defense stance, although I will say, I think in the future when I do start playing this character again, I'm going to start using the speed stance. I think the 9 speed on this character is insane. I think high speed lance and high speed scythe combined is ridiculous, and having 9 speed I think is so undervalued that it's just worth taking it, and I would say this is probably the best stance for her. So not too many people are playing Plague Knight or Caspian right now, but he's really, really good. And I would say if you're going to play him, probably run either base stance. I think base stance is your best choice. Or if you feel like you need to live longer, try defense. And then if you're feeling a little frisky, run the speed. Again, though, I think you do feel it on Katars a little bit, so I don't necessarily recommend this, although the speed might be worth it. So I would just try it out. There's not really one in particular. I would say when in doubt, just ride it out with base stance. Now Sidra. Sidra, I used to run defense stance on Sidra, and then I think I started just running base stance. If you can run it, I would try this out first with Sidra. Otherwise, if this doesn't feel good to you, just run base stance. I wouldn't try and push it. I mean, you could do this. You could use a strength stance, but I would start out with as low dex as possible and then build it up. So this absolute wagon, Zoll, I would say either use defense or use speed. I think speed's probably the best, and then if you're feeling pretty good on speed, you're looking for a new stance to try, I would try defense on him. Otherwise, yeah, just ride out with speed. I mean, I think speed's just the best on him. So with Kaia, I just think running base stance is the best. I think going down to the strength stance, which is 3 dex, it feels really bad for me on spear, and bow, I don't think it's going to feel the best on either. I think those are 2 weapons where you're going to notice the dex difference. So just running base stance is a good idea. It's probably the best idea. You could dabble with defense, but I don't think it's worth giving up the speed. And then also try it out, try strength stance, but I think at the end of the day, base stance still takes the cake. Oh, geez. I haven't talked about Isaiah in a brick. So Isaiah, don't use this one. Whatever you do, do not use defense stance on this guy. I would probably say just use speed. I think speed, having that 5 speed is going to be good on him. You don't really need that much strength on guns or cannon. You're going to get a lot of damage quick. And he has pretty strong SIGs anyway, so that kind of makes up for it. You could try out strength, but I think in 1s, for sure, use speed. I think speed overall is the best stance. In 2s, you could probably dabble with this and maybe get away with it. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll realize this is actually better. I don't know what I'm talking about with this legend, so I'm going to stop. But I do know what I'm talking about with Jiro, and I think running defense on Jiro is just, you're forced. Your hand is literally forced. I hate the stats of this character. I hate this character in general. We're done talking about him. Lin Fay, now previously when we've seen like Sandstorm play Lin Fay, he's run the defense stance. I don't think that's the best. I think nowadays just running the strength stance on Lin Fay, you lose a dex, but still super high dex. The character still feels really good to play, and I think it just helps her with killing a little bit. So strength stance is just the wave. Zario, now with Zario, running speed stance, I'm going to say right now is the best. And if you're looking to take away the dex, you could try the defense stance, although I think it's pretty extreme stats. I'm not gonna lie, that looks pretty interesting, but I think speed is just the best. Rayman, not really up for question. Again, I think this stance is really, really good. 4 dex on axe and gauntlets, you're not gonna notice it at all. 7 speed, I mean, this guy, he doesn't even have legs and he manages to run this fast. That's crazy to me. But yeah, just run speed. It's literally a free stat point. Use it. So the Dusker, honestly, Dusk, I think just running strength here is the best. Defense stance, again, maybe this is a 2v2 stance, but other than that, I would never run base on this character. Either you're looking for more defense or you're wanting the more strength. I think the strength edges it out a little bit. I think it's just, I mean, 7 strength spear and orb, that's pretty good, and you're not going to notice it at all. So, yeah, just take it. Fate, now, I would, again, start out with the speed. I think this is just freakish stats for a character. So starting out with 3 dex, again, on Scythe, I notice it. On Orb, I don't notice it at all. So if you're an Orb player, this is like ridiculous. I named her the best Orb legend in the game. So yeah, for an Orb player, this would be crazy. Other than that, though, I think base is probably the best. You could go for the defense if you're looking to live longer, but I would say start out with speed. If speed isn't feeling good to you, just move up to base and yeah, call it there. So Thor, you notice it a little bit on Hammer at this point with 3 dex. I would say, though, it's still worth running it. I don't really think there's like, oh yeah, you could use 3 dex, but 4 dex will feel better. I think 3 dex on him feels fine. It's not that big of a deal. So yeah, just run the speed stance on Thor. That's really, really good. Leaves him with like overall super solid stats. I mean, the guy's a freak anyway, so just getting even better stats is just a benefit. So with Petra, I just say use speed, try it out. If speed doesn't feel good to you, then you can bump up to base. Now, I've been playing Petra some, and I use defense stance in 2s, although I think at the end of the day, overall, best stance for her is speed. Gauntlets with low dex, you're not going to notice it. Orb is still Orb. It's going to feel pretty good overall, and I think just how the character's built, this only amplifies the strengths of them. So the bootleg transformer Vector, I'd probably say just run base stance, and if you're looking to mix it up, try the strength stance. If strength doesn't feel good to you, then yeah, again, use base stance. But overall, personally, I'm a base stance guy. Volkov, now in Volkov, either you're gonna just take the strength, which I think most people are going to do, but if you don't like that, then I would run the speed. Although the one thing that holds this character back from being absolutely insane, which I think he is already, but even more so, is the fact that when you add a speed, it takes away his strength, which isn't the biggest deal in the world because the SIGs are already really good for him. But either you're going to be running speed or you're going to be running strength. If you're running base, you're trolling. This is just throwing your game Defense, I mean, you can't play the game with 3 speed. So I would say either you're going to want to run faster or you're going to want to run strength. I don't really think one's necessarily better than the other. Maybe strength slightly out edges it, but yeah, it's kind of up to debate. Honestly, Onyx, I think you could just get away with using speed stance on Onyx. You're not going to notice the dex that much. Another speed on Cannon and Gauntlets is going to feel great. The character already is insane anyways. If you're not feeling like using speed stance, I would just say rock the base, but try speed out. It's worth it. Jaeon, I'll make it quick. Now, I recently thought Jaeon speed stance was going to be better because the new like added recovery time on miss for Greatsword. I was like, oh, the speed will let you get away quicker. No, that's not the case. Strength, just still the best. 7 strength on Greatsword, the highest strength Greatsword. And, well, one of the highest strength swords in the game, aside from, like, Boldvar and stuff. I think this is really good. I think it's worth using, and you're not really going to be able to notice it, especially on Greatsword. If you guys know anything about Dex and you look at the Dex chart for Greatsword right now, it's stupid. It doesn't do anything that is noticeable in any ways. So just, like, taking a minus Dex away from a Greatsword character is, like, always worth it. And as I say that, we come to this character. I mean, 9 speed. That's pretty insane, but again, probably you're just going to want to run base stance on Mako. I think Katars, again, rely too much on higher decks, so I don't really know if this is going to, like, remove anything further, but it's kind of up to you. I think Mako is pretty underdeveloped as a character. Like, no one's playing the character. I don't expect anyone. Even Wrenched. Wrenched was looking like he was going to play Mako, and now he's not. So I would say probably rocks tri-speed, but I think base stance is the best. And to finish it off, Magyar. Again, man, Magyar, kind of a letdown to me as far as the legend goes. But aside from that, running speed stance, I mean, already he's going to live super long. The strength, yeah, you know, the dex, whatever, doesn't really matter. The speed, though, does matter. You're really going to notice that. And I would say just running speed here, it's going to be your best option. Just get away from that 4 speed. You don't want to be like, you know, just a big boulder. You don't want to be like an immovable object. You want to be the unstoppable force, right? So just run the speed stance. You're going to feel a little bit better. It's going to feel a little bit better on both hammer and greatsword especially. So yeah, it's just better choice. Other than that, I got nothing. Thanks for watching. That was a lot. That was way longer than I thought, but yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.